After working with creatives for the last 11 years, I've heard one statement more than any other. I hate marketing. I get it. It can be painful trying to figure out how to market your book or movie or comic. When I started podcasting, I had no clue how to do any of it. I was afraid of doing it wrong, looking like an idiot or making a marketing mistake that I could not recover from. It can be paralyzing. Sound familiar? If it does, let me see if I can help you. I got my MBA in marketing, so you don't have to. Sign up for a free session today to talk about your marketing goals and to see if we're a good fit. If nothing else, you'll get some insights that might ease your mind. Go to southgatesmallbusiness.com and sign up for a free session today. Welcome to Alley Chats. I'm your host, Rob Southgate. Alley Chats is a virtual artist alley featuring interviews with artists, filmmakers, podcasters, writers, really any creative person you might find at a pop culture convention. My goal is to help draw attention to cool people and to hopefully help them get some new fans. I want this podcast to raise up these amazing people and to inspire you, the listener, to chase your dreams as well. You can follow Alley Chats on Facebook and join the conversation. I'll add more social media in the future, but for now, that's the best place to interact with me. You can also email me directly if you would like to be a guest or have a guest suggestion. My email is rob@smgpods.com. Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the show. I'm excited to talk to you. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah,
that's only
definitely
something that you and I would understand, but we're finally here doing our thing. Lisa, why don't you tell people who you are, tell them a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into it.
All right. So I am Lisa Vasquez. I am the CEO of Stitch Smile Publications, also the co-owner with Joe Meinhardt and Crystal Lake Entertainment for Memento Mori Inc. magazine. I am an author, an HWA mentor, and an artist.
All right. That's pretty concise. So one thing that I noticed going through your Goodreads and your Amazon, you seem to really like short story writing, which is great because I love short stories. So
actually, it's not that I like short stories better. It's that I'm so slow because of everything that I have to do that I would never publish anything if I didn't put some short stories out.
Sure. Actually, I'm a VP of marketing with a publisher, and I believe that Erica, the CEO, is the same. All of her books so far have been short stories. And I was like, hey, we need to get you a Bram Stoker award. And she was like, not ready for that novel. I'm like, I get it. Yeah. She writes some scary stuff, and I'm sure yours is terrifying because just reading the synopsis, I'm like, oh, yeah. Oh, I can't wait to read these. So the reason we're talking and the reason I haven't read your stuff, this all just kind of happened in the last 2 weeks for me. You're going to be at Books and Brews, which is in Evanston, Illinois, Double Clutch Brewing Company. Anybody that's listening to this show has heard me say this now, I don't know, about 18 times or so. But you want to go to this thing. It's going to be awesome. It's August 3rd. Lisa will be there. Turns out I'll be there. Tiffany offered me a table, which is like, okay, come see the guy who just talks to people. But you know what? I'll be giving advice all day. That's what I do. Marketing guy, you know? So I'm really excited to meet you in person. I'm really excited to talk to you about, hold on, what is the name of it? Because I've been waiting this whole time. Evil Little Fucks. Oh my God, the title is the greatest. The cover is fantastic. And what's funny is I was talking to my wife, we're sitting at dinner. And she said, oh, who are you interviewing today? And I said, it's Lisa Vasquez. And I was kind of talking about how, I was telling her about some of the anthologies and how cool it is. And then I said, oh, you might like this one. And I said, Evil Little Fucks. And she went, oh, she's one of us. I was like, yeah, she is. She goes, ooh, I'm going to want to read that, aren't I? I was like, yeah, I think so. Because she was a nanny. So she's got the scary kid stuff in spades. Plus, our
Right.
daughter, who's 17, is now a horror writer.
Oh, okay.
And she has spent most of her life just terrifying the hell out of us.
Exactly.
Uh,
So she has to write. Yeah.
she has to. She has to. So let's start with that. Now that we've kind
Mhm.
of gotten that preamble out of the way, how long have you been writing? What got you into it?
So what got me writing in is actually my it started with my fourth grade teacher, Miss Reese, and she we used to do, I guess I should start back. So when I was younger, my stepdad, he was just a creator. Like he loved to have us do like little skits together, and he would write like, he would draw like little, I don't know what they would like, boards, storyboards, or whatever, and then he would put
Okay.
them through like, and so we used to do that with him, and so we were telling stories in that way. And then Miss Reese was a teacher that used to encourage reading for us and writing. So she would give us the like, a sentence or an idea, and then we had these little pieces of paper, and we could draw a picture, and then we would write a story on there. And I thought it was so fascinating to find everybody who had the same sentence, what they would come up with. And I was hooked after that. I was like, oh my God. And it was hilarious because me and maybe one or two other people in the classroom would write horror sci-fi. And she was like,
Right, right. Like the
but
prompt was, there's a kitten in the
yeah,
street, and everyone else would be like, oh, I grabbed the kitten, it was fluffy. And you're like, and it was possessed
yeah,
by the thing from outer space, and it split open.
exactly.
And yeah, okay.
Yeah. So
I know
my
your
dad,
type.
so my dad was into, horror very big. And so, my first viewing of like silver screen monsters was with him. And, he dispelled the magic for me in a good way where, I wasn't afraid of it. I was interested in it. And
Mm.
so just it started from there. And then after that, life happens, trauma happens, and you got to exorcise the demons somehow. And I didn't want to write a diary, so I really wanted to write the stories that I could control. And that's how it started.
That's fantastic. I was actually just talking to another author about how writing horror can be so therapeutic,
Yes.
and how so many of the authors I talk to, they tell me that when they were kids, they were terrified of this stuff,
Mhm.
and somehow the world of writing it and that just has completely opened them up, which is
Right.
awesome. So yeah, that's really interesting. I love your stepdad with the storyboards and that.
Yes.
We used to do a lot of exercises like that around here too. And like now
Hmm.
they have those story cubes, and like I'd buy her story cubes. She never used them because she was already
Oh,
like, no, it was
yeah.
already like exploding.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
So when I do it, she'd be like,
I got one
restricted.
better.
I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm just gonna stop with this. Even though I was thinking, how cool is this? If I was a 5 year
Right.
old, I think this is the coolest thing. And she was, as her
She's
whole
beyond
life has
it.
been. Yeah, she's way beyond me. So what was it about? I think you answered this, but I actually want to dig a little deeper into it. What was
Sure.
it about horror that kept you coming back? Once the magic trick was revealed
Mm.
and you thought it
You
was
know,
cool, what was it?
oh, so with horror watching it, it was, we'd watch a movie and he'd go, how do you think they did that? Right. And so I'd be like, oh, yeah. So we would just do this, sleuthing and figure out how they did it. And one of the movies that really had me stumped for a long time was Gates of Hell. So I know there's another title for it. I always forget the other title. I knew it by Gates of Hell. So it's one of my favorite movies. And some of the, Savini was just amazing. So he did all these crazy things, and I would have to figure out how it was happening. And just when things stop being scary, it just becomes interesting. Like, you don't see that in puppeteering, right? You don't see it in that. There's no magic there. There's no like, how could you look like somebody is literally being shred to pieces or their brain is being drilled out and it's not real. So, and I think the suspension of belief too is there. So when you are literally hanging, thinking, oh my God, this guy is really dying this way, your mind will take you there. Your mind will trick you into believing like that's really happening. So that when we pull the curtain up and there's, Mr. Oz, and there's, these revealings there, you go back and watch it and you're like, oh, like my mind really went there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that, it's like, for example, people who watch The Exorcist, right? When you watch it again, or one of the big things too was in the Silence, not Silence of the Lambs, and next one.
Hannibal.
Anyway, yeah, thank you.
We did the
Where he cuts
brain
his
thing.
brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're sitting there, we're staring at, we're like, how the hell did he do that? Right. Was it makeup? Was it this? And then you realize later that, they just did a dummy. And I was like, it's crazy because your
But
mind is not there.
it sure doesn't feel like it when you're watching it, especially that
Right.
first time.
Right. So when you're watching, your brain is literally being led to do this. And so this little things like that happen. And we had a play that we did in grammar school where we were supposed to be witches on brooms, and we ran off stage, but we had everybody in the front row and in our thing pointing upwards. And the whole crowd was like, how are they going to get up there? And they were all staring up. So when we ran through the crowd, they didn't realize we were there. And then we came back down. And it's just, tricking the brain a little bit. I think it's a really cool thing. But what kept me going, I think, is just without realizing it, right? Without realizing it, it answers a lot of questions. It touches on the fears, and it goes there, and it helps you to work through it. Honestly, yeah. So long,
Yeah.
long answer. We got
No,
there.
it's really interesting. I remember talking to Sandy King Carpenter, John Carpenter's wife, and we were talking
Hmm.
about just this. Like, what is it about horror? And she was saying
Yeah.
the same thing. She was like,
Mm.
it not only exorcised the demons, but she was like, there are so many layers to it
Yeah.
that you can only tell this way once you and she was also talking about the magic trick, which I love. Now, when you said Gates of Hell, I gotta
Hmm.
ask, there is a movie from 1980 called City of the Living Dead where they close the gates of hell. Is that the one you're talking about?
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That one, God, I look at the poster, I look
Yeah.
at the trailer, and I'm like, I totally know this movie, but I don't remember. So now I have to watch this
You have
movie.
to. Yeah.
It looks like
You have to
my
watch
kind
it.
of movie.
Yeah, for the life of me, I could not explain the beginning scene. There's a priest scene. I could not explain that one. And then there's a scene with a drill, and you'll know it. I won't spoil it for you because it's fantastic. So yeah.
So if you had to pick your top three horror movies, and I know this is a horrible
Ooh,
question, top three
yeah.
horror
Oh my
movies
God.
at this moment, what would you say? You want to introduce me, you want me to see three horror movies. Even if I've seen them,
Mm.
you're like, we're having movie night. What are we watching?
Oh. So if I'm gonna say this to you as a horror, buff like me, like someone who just loves horror, you've probably seen everything. Um, I would say Gates of Hell, number one.
Number one.
Um, that's number one. The other one, my memory is really bad, so forgive me if I get this one wrong, but it's another 1980 movie. I believe it's called Star Walker. It's about a mummy. You're gonna look it up for me. Thank
Oh,
God.
I'm looking it
Yeah,
up
yeah, look it up
because
because
that one is sounding so familiar.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the mummy, and he's got the little crystal balls, and he's coming to get him.
Yep.
Yeah, that one
Yeah,
was
I think it's called Star
fantastic.
Walker.
Yep. Okay, good. So it's called Star Walker. That one is fantastic for like just gore and like, whatnot. Sometimes they don't have great plots, don't care. So that one, that one. And then the other one is always going to be Alien. I don't care what anybody says. It is sci-fi horror and it is amazing. So it's my favorite. The Queen lives.
Oh, you know what? You are so right.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm writing it. Now I'm convinced it's not Star Walker. So I'm gonna have to look this thing up when we're done.
Yeah.
I think it's something like that though. I know
Yeah.
this movie. Uh,
Yeah.
so now I got lost in that whole
It
thing.
might be Time Walker. Look up Time Walker. Look up that
Time
one.
Walker.
Yeah. Look at that one.
Yeah, that sounds like one. Time Walker 1980 horror I wrote. Oh, hell yeah. That's it.
Yeah. That's
Yep,
it.
an
Yeah.
alien buried in King Tut's tomb. Yeah, and you know
Yes.
what? Aliens, it's funny where that dividing line is.
Hmm.
Because I always say alien because I thought that was just terrifying the first time I saw it. And then
Yeah.
aliens to me was just awesome. But so many
Yeah.
people I talk to, it's aliens, the thing, and
Hmm.
I then it kind of is a mixed bag. Then we get things like
Yeah.
Time Walker.
Yeah.
Uh, when you get to me, it's like Return of the Living Dead and
Hmm.
Reanimator always seem to make my
Hmm.
list.
Yeah.
Always, but then again, today. always today. But you know what? I think that we're of the same era. These
Yeah.
movies like Time Walker, we used to go to the video store and they
Hmm.
had the cover art that was so awesome.
Yes.
And you could not resist, even if it was a piece of crap movie. You're like,
Yep.
but there's a mummy, and I can tell there's like an alien eye underneath it.
Yep.
This is it. I think that's how I fell into Frankenhooker because Frankenhooker
Frank
had.
Henenlotter. Yeah, he's
Do,
awesome.
do you remember the box though? The box was the greatest
Yes.
part. Where
Yes.
when you walked by the display, it would go, "Want a date?" It had a
Yeah.
little voice box.
Yep.
That's
Mhm.
5-star marketing right there. I love it. Uh,
Exactly.
so okay. Uh, it mentions in your bio that you are a
Mhm.
mentor for the Horror Writers Association.
Correct. Yeah.
Is that national? Is that Chicago?
That's all over. It's actually global now. So
Well, I know the
yeah.
Horror Writers Association is. The reason I ask is I just interviewed Chris Hawkins, who is,
Yeah.
he kind of runs the Midwest or the Chicago chapter. And
Mhm.
then he had me come on and do a marketing seminar for everybody, like an
Okay.
AMA. And
Mhm.
that was for the local chapter. So when you're mentoring, it's within the whole organization, correct?
Yes. So what they do is for the mentoring program, what they do is they kind of just open it up and they say, let's match you with somebody as best we can. So if somebody's like, well, for example, if somebody's like, hey, I just really want help with, learning short stories, or that's my forte, then they try to put them with somebody who has that experience. But I mean, they do the best they can with it. I mean, there's so many people that are looking to be mentored, so they're always looking for mentors. So I want to put that out there because it's a need. And I was mentored myself by John Palisano. So, if I didn't have that guidance in the beginning, I don't think that I would have, reached the level I have in the time frame that I have. You always have to have a mentor.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. I have a mentor now that helps me. No matter what level you are, there's somebody better, and you should always, try to reach out to somebody that can, expand and help you um, get out of your comfort zone. Yeah.
So I see here that you're compared to like Mary Shelley and Baz Luhrmann and then
Mhm.
John Palisano. Uh, is that kind of one of the things that you love? Is that kind of gothic horror? Is that kind of the playground you like to be in, or are you like, I don't care what it is?
I don't care what it is.
Horror is your thing.
Yeah. It's
I've
just
run into people that
horror.
it's like their
I've
specifics.
I've tried to write things that are not horror, and it always turns horror. Like it always goes dark some way. So I'm like, I can't. I've tried. I've tried to write a love story. It goes dark. But yeah. But gothic horror or like Victorian age style, like Mary Shelley, or I'm in love with things like that, like Sweeney Todd and Sherlock and Frankenstein. There's
Yeah.
an actual story behind the whole Mary Shelley and the Frankenstein, but those things
Wait, I
just
want to hear the
they do it
story.
for me.
Tell me the story.
So the reason why for Mary Shelley is we were watching Frankenstein when I was really young. So my stepdad, who's been my stepdad since I was 2, but I've known him my whole life. He's been in the family, I should say, for my whole life. But so he ended up with a end stage renal failure. And so when we were watching Frankenstein, he kind of looked at me and he was like, how amazing is it that Mary Shelley wrote this and now we have transplants? He's a 3-time kidney transplant patient, 3 times.
Right.
He made medical books and he was like, had she probably didn't even know that this was something possible. So it
Right.
became very personal to the both of us that,
Wow.
science fiction really does, take our ideas and then make them our future. So, he's like, she made this story about taking organs and giving this creature life. And he's like, and he was literally dead on the table, and they brought him back, and then they gave him this kidney and he had an extra 25 years of life. So I mean,
Wow.
it's insane, right? And so it
Yeah.
became very, very personal to me. And so since then, I mean, I always loved her anyway, but it became very personal to me after that. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is a fantastic story. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I had not contextualized
Mm-hmm.
Frankenstein that way, but I talk about that because I read a lot of science fiction too.
Yeah.
And how, I mean, like, look at the world we live in right now, iPads and that
Mm-hmm.
is all because of Star Trek and because of things like that.
Yep.
I even when you go back and you read like, H.G. Wells or,
Yes.
going back, now I'm drawing a blank, some of these really old, and then you read them and you go, okay, well, yeah, they're kind of racist, but
Yeah.
wow. Yeah. John Carpenter,
Yeah.
John Carter. When you read that one, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, there's some racism
Yeah.
going on in this. But at the same
Yeah.
time, there's stuff in there that you go, these are concepts that are now just starting to be realized and actually
Hmm.
becoming things. It's
Right.
crazy. I hadn't realized
Right.
that with the transplants. Now I'm going to watch it in a whole
Hmm.
new light. I actually just bought the new version that has the original text. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have
There,
not yet.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's Penguin put it out, and it's the
Mhm.
original text. And I
Oh,
thought,
that's
ooh, I want to
fantastic.
read this because
Yeah.
that's got to be really fascinating. Just getting back into that. So, want more shows like this? We've got a lot more on the Southgate Media Group Patreon page. Some free, some paid. Plus, there's exclusive content for subscribers only. Follow the link in the show notes or look up Southgate Media Group on Patreon and check out the cool stuff we're doing over there. You won't be sorry. On August 3rd, 2024, Books of Horror is presenting Books and Brews at Double Clutch Brewing Company in Evanston, Illinois. There will be over 40 horror authors for a book signing and meetup from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. that day. Meet your favorite authors, discover new authors, meet Books of Horror friends in real life, including the author I'm talking with on this podcast. Oh, and I'll be there too. This is an all ages event. Food, alcohol, and non alcoholic beverages will be available. No outside food or drinks will be allowed. Search for Books of Horror Presents Books and Brews on Facebook events for more information, or click on the link in the show notes. I hope to see you there. Okay, you grew up on the South Side.
Hmm.
Okay, for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, because you're not here in Chicago, I'm talking Chicago. This is an important question. What's the
Oh, I know
pizza
what
in
you're gonna ask me.
Chicago? No, the pizza. You were going
The
to ask Cubs or
pizza.
Sox. I'm not,
Yeah,
because I
right.
don't care. I don't
Okay.
care either way, but pizza,
Right.
South
Pizza.
Side. What do you do?
Ah. So, I mean, of course, if I'm taking somebody to Chicago, they have to have deep dish. They have to, just to experience it once in their life. But I
But
like the
where?
thin crust. Oh,
But
where?
where?
Okay, okay.
That's what I want to know.
Oh, you're killing me.
I
Oh, I mean,
know.
I guess the deep dish would be Giordano's.
Interesting.
I think,
Okay.
yeah,
Now, was
yeah.
Giordano's a big South Side pizza?
I don't know. It's just my family's thing. We're
Just
all
your
from
family's thing?
Bridgeport, so
Okay. Okay. I know Bridgeport. Yeah, we're Lou Malnati's. And I mean, literally, we would drive from Minneapolis back here to Chicago, and we'd drive past my parents to go get Super Dog, and then we'd come back an hour to my parents to eat Lou Malnati's at their house, and then we'd say hi. So, yeah,
yeah.
I
I
get it.
always go back. When I go back, I have to lose. People think I'm crazy because I will lose 10 pounds because I'm like, well, I have to eat when I get there.
Right. It's
And the food is
Chicago.
just the food. Chicago has its own flavor. Like people wonder what I'm talking about. Even their hero, because I'm Greek. So when I came out here to Texas, I was like, this is not. What is wrong with this? And then my brother and I discovered there's a whole different. It's a specific flavor that they use in Chicago Greek food.
Yes.
So it's funny. But so I grew up on Maxwell Street Depot, hot dogs,
Oh,
and
yeah.
mm, now my
Yeah.
mouth is watering.
Yeah.
So and the Polish sausage, and then there's the big babies, which
Mm.
I don't even know if they're still around anymore. We slide over to the sliders and we get our White Castle, and then I'm sorry because this is like making my mouth water and also not good for your arteries, but and then of course we
Yeah, but
go
there's artery
for
replacement now. Mary
yeah.
Shelley introduced us to a world where we can eat in Chicago.
Yeah. And let's see what else. There's something else. Well, of course, Giordano's. Um, and Joe the Hot Dog King is no longer there, but he was like one of the other ones that I would go to for roast beef. I mean, we go to Portillo's just for fun. I'm not real fond of their stuff. They kind
It's
of
okay.
changed their stuff a little. It's all right. Yeah. Like now there's
Yeah.
Portillo's here, but
Come on.
whatever.
People love it everywhere. And
Yeah.
you know what? When we lived in Minneapolis and you couldn't get, that would have been the place,
Right.
if they
Yeah.
had one. But when we're here, for us, Super Dog is number one.
Hmm.
Always number one
Number
for
one.
our family. But you know
Yeah.
what? You could throw a rock and find a good beef place, a good hot dog place. But you're all right. It's kind of like New York. You know, their food tastes a
Yeah.
certain way because of the water.
Yeah.
Chicago, it might be the water, it might be other things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wondered if Southside was different on the pizza, but I love
It could be.
Giordano's. So
It could be, to be honest with you. I've never been like your typical South Sider. So yeah, they ask me questions and they kind of eyeball me weird when I answer them. So
so you'd be the oddball on Shameless. They'd look at you weird, right?
exactly, exactly.
So for short stories, and I know I don't mean to harp on short stories, but since you have
No, no,
so
go
many
for
of
it.
them, what do you think are
Yeah.
the qualities that make a good short story, regardless of genre?
It needs to kick you in the teeth. Like it
Mm,
has to be short and it has to do it in such a short amount of time. So it needs to be concise. The hardest thing that I have with it is because I love to world build, right? So you have to make sure that they people understand and move that story forward. You have this much space to move the story forward without losing context, right? Without losing
yeah.
your audience. So you have to start right from the very beginning, and then it has to have an ending that ties everything together in this much space.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you
You
have to
can't
be able to do
lollygag
that.
around. Yeah.
Right. You have to be concise, but you have to be able to kick them in the teeth while you're doing it.
Do you find when you're writing them that you have to kill your babies sometimes to get it short enough?
Yeah. Usually I'm at already at like 3,000 and I'm like, oh, you have a 5,000 word. Yeah. Okay. We're going to have to rewind a little bit.
Yeah. It can be tricky. And you now you also were the editor for magazine. Which
Yeah.
you've driven me crazier. I've closed all of my tabs because I keep jumping around with you. Uh, House of Stitched magazine. So were you the nightmare editor where you were like, you get 3,000 words and at 3,001, I cut it off?
No, actually, with House of Stitch, I let them kind of run havoc on there. But now that I'm with Memento Mori Inc., I'm the editor in chief for that one. Now they're like, you get 750. Like that's it. Only, yeah, only Tommy Clark, who's my senior columnist, he kind of gets a little bit of extra leeway in there. Maybe, if it's a good story and it's going, I'll be like, okay, I'll give you an extra 200. But for the most part, they got 750. That's it. Like, be real. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I saw one of your books was Thousand Words. Now, see, I lost it on here.
Hmm.
The Thousand Word Horror Stories, I believe.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, and you got me there because the cover has a King Kong on it. So I'm like, oh, yep, I'm
Yeah.
in. No, 100 word horror
It was 100 word
story.
drabbles. Yeah, that's a Kevin J. Kennedy um uh put together there. And yeah, that was the hardest thing I ever did, man. That was hard. So it took
100
me,
words.
yeah, you have to have a complete story in 100 exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Do you have it handy?
Nope.
I was going to make you read it to me. I did a, I had to talk about marketing. It was a video. It was called the World's Fastest Video Conference.
Oh,
And
wow.
they had asked me to speak at it, and I was the only marketer. Everyone else was like video people. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. And they wanted me to talk about this social media thing, which I don't really do, but I was like, oh, okay, I've got a thing I do.
Yeah.
I had 1 minute.
Oh, wow.
I had an hour long talk that I had to squeeze all the juice out of, get it down to 1 minute. That's what you're talking about here.
Yep.
It felt
Yep.
like 100 words. Top.
Yeah.
And then the worst part for me is after I did the whole thing and I was like, I got it. I recorded it. It was done. They said, yeah, the last 20 seconds should be you promoting your like your website and all that. And I'm like, wait, does that count in the minute?
Right. Yeah. Like that's
It
extra, right?
did. It did.
Oh no.
So
Yeah.
yeah, talk about I had to pull the seeds and the rind out too to make it fit.
Oh,
But it
yeah.
did. It did. So I am dying to read this. I'm dying to read your story. Do you remember what your story was about?
Yeah, so it was about a closet, and that's all I'm gonna tell you.
Well, it's about a closet. We're 4 words into this story already. You better get
Yep.
busy because it's only 100 words. Uh, this has been so much fun. So what else do I want to know here? I mean, this was really great. Hold on, I'm pulling other things up. I want to see if I had any other questions I wanted to ask you. Yeah, here's one. This
Mhm.
is this is kind of a I don't know. I just want to hear what you have to say. What advice would you give to a new horror author today? I think you already gave some, but I want to hear what else you say.
Some of it, yeah. So number one is get yourself a mentor. The other thing is write the effing story. Stop worrying about research. Stop worrying about fixing and editing and all that other stuff. Get it out first, word vomit, and then go back. Just get it out, no matter what you do. And that was the advice a friend gave me when I wrote The Unsaintly, because I kept going back to it. I was like, oh, I want it to be accurate. I want it to be this. I want it to be perfect. I want it to be this. And he's like, write the fucking story. I was like, okay. And I did. And you know what? It's not my favorite story as far as clean and editing. I was a fledgling. It's probably the worst as far as skill goes, but it's my favorite. So it doesn't matter. I keep it up there because I want people, when I'm mentoring them, to see like everything you write, the first draft is shit. And then after that, that's when you clean it up.
Yeah. I interviewed Jeff Strand. He was talking about his trunk novels. He's like, I wrote like 10 novels before I ever let him see the light of day.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's like, that's what you do.
Yep.
But he said, that's how you learn. So I thought that was I thought that was an interesting approach. And I think yours is really great. Just write it. Just write.
Mm-hmm.
Then go back. Okay. Oh, I'm going to ask you one more question. I normally ask at this point, like, because we already talked about food. I usually say, well, you're going to be in Chicago for Books and Brews. Where do you want to eat? What do you want to do? You've been here. You already know. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a question that I've asked other people. This is one of my preset questions that I don't always ask, but I want to hear your answer.
Okay.
What has writing horror taught you about the world and yourself?
Oh, okay. So writing horror, what it taught to me is that, and you probably hear this answer all the time, but it's so true. Humans are the real monsters. There's nothing that I could write as far as monster goes that would touch anything of what humans can do to one another, and to other living things. So what it taught me about for myself, though, is that I do have this deep, dark personification in me, right? I have this, but I'm not out killing people. I'm not trying to do harm to people, but it taught me to embrace both sides, because without one, you can't have the other. And for a long, long time, my motto and I don't know if you call it motto, but like my little byline was, without darkness, there can be no light. So, yeah.
Excellent answer. And you know what? You're the first one to say it.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
There's another answer that I've had like 3 times, and I'm like, and it's kind of an interesting one, but that was the first one, that the humans are the real monsters. So very good. Lisa, this was a lot of fun. I can't wait to meet you at Books and Brews. It's at Double Clutch Brewing Company in Evanston, Illinois on August 3rd. Come by, meet Lisa, get things autographed, see if she can remember the 100 words to her story. I guarantee she won't, but you know what? You can ask her. And it's just going to be so much fun at this event. You definitely want to see her. And I will put Lisa's contact information in the show notes. One more thing I want to say about that is follow her. Share about her books. Tell people about it. That's how book sales happen, and that's how we keep getting more books. And that's the way you really encourage is to actually share. Don't just put a little like on things. And Lisa, do you have a newsletter?
No. So the newsletter just is the Memento Mori, and I just kind of smash everything at once because I like to be concise.
So there you go. Subscribe to the Memento Mori newsletter.
Correct. Yeah.
Do that, because that helps too. So Lisa, thank you so much for being on. I can't wait to meet you in person.
Thank you so much.
And I can't wait to tell you how wrong you are about Giordano's versus Luminati's.
Well, you can tell me about Time Walker then.
There we go. It's a deal.
Right.
It would really help me out if you would rate and review this show on whatever platform you use to listen to this podcast. Good reviews help others find the show, which ultimately helps the people I've interviewed get more exposure. You can connect with me on social media or via email. All the links are found in the show notes. If you like this show, you'll like other shows from Southgate Media Group as well, such as Read Between the Lines, a podcast featuring insightful interviews with some of the hottest authors out there, or Go Fund This, a podcast where we interview people about their amazing crowdfunding projects. You can find our shows wherever you listen to podcasts, so give them a try. And if you like what you hear, don't forget to rate and review our shows. It really helps other people find them and keep our team inspired. Alley Chats is a production of Southgate Media Group, hosted, produced, and edited by me, Rob Southgate. Thanks again for listening. to Alley Chats.